congratulations on this series. I've had a chance to sit down and watch a few episodes, and I've got to say, it is absolutely fantastic. So congratulations.
Thank you.
So I was wondering if we could start off. Could someone tell us a little bit about how this series all started out?
Rachel.
Okay. Sure. I met Fern and Kayla within a week of each other. Kayla at a hot yoga class, Fern at a life coaching event on how to be fearless, I think in 2015. And maybe 6 months later, Kayla and I were toying with the idea of doing a film project together. I came in as a writer, my background's playwriting, and then Fern and Kayla are, of course, both actors. And we decided on a web series and thought, we should bring Fern on board. I had recently seen her in a show, a play. I don't know if you remember Fern with Kaylee.
I don't remember so well. I think I remember.
That's how I met Kaylee.
Didn't you see Fern in a play in the East Village?
I did.
We remember.
I said Fern's a great actor. We should bring her on board. And I thought that all three of our energies were pretty complementary as far as being able to do a fun comedy. So we brought Fern on board. We toyed with different ideas, and we knew that we wanted to create three characters that were accentuated, larger-than-life versions of some of our personality quirks. We're quite different than our characters in real life, of course, but I think we're easily able to embody their energies because they lend themselves to our natural states of energy from time to time.
I have to add, a recent review we got was funny. It was saying that we were kind of making fun of our own stereotypes. And I thought that was it was a funny take on that because as an actor, you often get typecast. And so I think we were kind of playing with that idea of making fun of ourselves a little bit and enjoying that aspect.
Yeah, and I will say that as a writer, I always have tended to make fun of my kind of personality type through characters. I often didn't end up playing them, but I always would kind of play or, make fun of or play at that stereotype because it felt fun and comedic and something that I knew a lot about, obviously, because it comes from an exaggerated stereotype that people might perceive me as when they first meet me or something like that.
Yeah, it's something that comedians do in a way. They kind of...
Okay, you're right. Yeah. Yeah, so it's just something that naturally, lended itself for us and for the premise and the scripts. And then the actual business idea was inspired by a podcast episode I heard where someone actually had a message delivered to them in that style while he was at his job in a bookstore, I think in the Lower East Side, and it was delivered, out in public. He was really mortified because it was a very personal message. It was like a Patrick, it's me, Jamie, I'm in love with you kind of message. And he's like, I do know Jamie, but who's this random guy delivering the message to me? And I thought, that's interesting. That'd be really interesting if your job was to deliver these messages every day and you had to be really good at it. Customers had to be happy with you because your ability to pay your rent and to live in the city, and in the girls' case, girls meaning the three main characters' case, pursue their dreams in the city depended on them being able to have a happy customer base and run this hopefully will turn into a thriving business model in New York City. And it also just felt like a perfect fit for New York because you just can't help but being really plunged into people's intimate affairs on a regular basis, whether you're on the subway or you're in line at the store. You just can't help but overhearing their intimate conversations, and you can't help sometimes but sharing your intimate life with others just because there's so many people per square foot in New York. You might end up crying while walking down the street, and that's just going to be the way it is because there's no personal private space to do that, as opposed to when you live in more suburban places. You can go to your car or you can go to a private room. It just isn't possible a lot of times in a place like New York. And so we thought it was a fun reflection of the city. But of course, our version of the city is very cartoonish and larger than life and theatrical, probably because all three of us actually come from a theater background and musical theater background, which of course is always jazz hands larger than life. Our show really kind of reflects that as well, that sensibility.
Definitely. Rachel, I was going to ask that. Where do you get the ideas for the different situations that the characters find themselves in? Because I know I'm guilty of something that you just mentioned there. I once based one of my short films on a conversation that I overheard a couple having on a bus one day. So where do you get your ideas from for the situations that the characters find themselves in?
Some of might like even be subconsciously autobiographical as far as like I know I've tried to write feminist performance pieces in the past and they weren't very good. So maybe I never had, not to give anything away, but penises or vaginas in a play. But maybe Lily's, she's really trying to say something and it doesn't exactly, the execution isn't completely there for her. She's still finding her voice. That probably came from a personal space. And I think just some stuff, I just was in a very playful space of delight, I think, when writing a lot of the episodes and just being in that kind of space. And I didn't put any pressure on myself as far as like, I have to say this message or, this kind of vibe has to happen or tone has to happen. I wasn't trying to be necessarily like any specific other series. So I kind of allowed myself to play and see what came out. And I think that probably, just being in that space of inspiration probably helped. And of course, the three of us did brainstorm, like for actual message deliveries, we brainstormed different ideas. Like, wouldn't it be funny if there was a message about this and a message about that? And I remember writing stuff down. I wrote this in I wrote season 1 in 2016, I believe. So it's been a while to like remember every specific detail of how I wrote it. But yeah, that's like the basic, I guess.
Kayla, what made you come to the decision to do this as a web series? Because it's been funny watching web series develop here in Australia. It started off with a couple of comedians doing some shows online, and originally I think that the people involved with television had a negative view of it, and all of a sudden they started to realize, hang on a minute, I can do this, and I don't have to go through the pitching process to a network. What made you all decide to do this as a web series?
Yeah, I think that it was like Rachel said, when her and I were hanging out, we were always brainstorming about ideas for how we could create our own work. And I think that it was right around the time when series like Broad City and High Maintenance were having web series on Vimeo and YouTube. And so we were inspired by seeing different web series content then being picked up by networks and getting a larger audience. And people were just, more actors were starting to just pick up their iPhones and shoot content and put it on the internet. So I was just in a place of wanting to create more opportunities for myself and have more of a creative outlet more creative control over my acting and being able to, so I was thinking of creating my own work, and then Rachel was also interested in doing that with her writing, and we thought it would be so fun for the three of us to get to act in something. So a web series seemed more, it just seemed like a doable task.
And Fern, what were your thoughts when Kayla and Rachel first came to you with the idea for the show and showed you some of the scripts?
The funny thing is that I'm actually a bit of a pessimist sometimes, but I'm willing to go with whatever. Just to see what happens. And so I remember when they told me about this, I was like, we're gonna shoot a pilot. It wasn't even about a series at this point. It was like just a pilot. And I was like, I have no idea how to do this, but sure, why not? Let's try. But I didn't actually think that we were gonna do it, and then we did it, and I was like, oh, wow, we filmed the whole pilot. That's so cool. And then we went from there to filming, 7 episodes in a full season. And like, I think along the way it was just very much of a going with it and rolling with it. And I'm grateful, honestly, that I didn't know how much work it was going to be and how hard it was going to be, because, like, you don't know what you don't know, and that, honestly, was a bit of a gift in this situation.
So how do you feel now that, and I guess this is a question for all of you, how do you all feel now that it's out there and people are able to view it? Are you nervous? Are you excited? How do you feel?
So excited, and it feels weird. It feels very surreal that, like, this thing that we've watched for so many years, over so many iterations, with each layer added on, is now like complete, and there are no more changes that we're going to make to it. It's all done, and now people can see it on their devices, and some actors have been posting clips of them watching it on their TVs and stuff, and that is really strange for me, because I'm like, so cool. Oh, right, people are watching this in their homes on their TVs. Wow.
Yeah.
And I guess... Yeah, go ahead, Kayla.
I'm also just feeling pretty excited. Like, I think we were all slightly nervous when we had our first premiere, and having a live audience and hearing reactions for the first time. There's a little bit of jitters there of, like, because we've all been so involved in every step of the process, it's been challenging for us to see it with fresh eyes. And I think that now receiving people's perspective on how they're perceiving our show and our message and things like that, it's been really exciting. It's been like a way to see the show with fresh eyes again in a way. It's been really cool.
And Rachel, how do you feel? And also adding on to that, where to now for the series as well?
Oh, I definitely echo Fern's thoughts, and it's feeling very surreal. And like Kayla said, it was so cool to have our first live audience. We premiered 2 weeks ago at the Big Apple Film Festival in the heart of Times Square at AMC Theaters. And that was such an amazing experience because we filmed near Times Square. We cast near Times Square. I think we filmed some crowdfunding videos there.
Oh, yeah.
Such a big part of our journey as the series, and to be able to have our world premiere, like festival premiere, there, like in in our hometown, but also in the heart of Times Square, where Broadway is, and so many beautiful, exciting lights and people. Just the energy there was really exciting.
Especially right after the pandemic, like things still opening up and just being there after not experiencing that energy. It was still kind of quiet, I felt, but still nice to be there.
Yeah, really fun to be there. And we are just now entering the film festival circuit, and we just released the show on YouTube this last Monday, November 15th. So we're very much in the beginning stages of launching the show, building our audience, and entering the film festival circuit. We'll probably be doing it for about the next year or so. So that's really a full plate for us right now. We also just screened at NYC Web Fest last weekend, which is really fun. We won Best Comedy there out of 57 series that screened. And we also just won Best Web Series at the New York International Film Awards. So it feels really good to get a lot of love from New York, our home place. And yeah, we're just looking forward to going forward. We're having these fun little Human Telegraphs live watch parties on YouTube every Monday at 8:30 Eastern Standard Time. So that's been cool too, because we're screening an episode each week along with other fun things, and it's fun to see our community that helped support us in building this show, leaving comments live as we're screening, about different funny moments in the episode, or questions about how did you do this, how did you film this. So I think we're still very much in that process of sharing it with our community and hopefully reaching people outside of the community eventually. We just want to spread some joy and cheer.
Definitely. And for all of our listeners out there who are wondering where they can see the series, we will actually put a link up on our website so that people will know where to check out Human Telegraphs. I guess to finish off the interview, one at a time, starting with you, Fern, tell everybody out there why they should sit down and watch this series.
Well, the world is kind of a crappy place sometimes, and we all need some, lightness and joy. And I think that if you sit down and watch Human Telegraphs, you're going to feel happier after you do it. It's going to be like an hour plus very well spent.
Definitely. Kayla, why should our listeners sit down and watch Human Telegraphs this weekend?
Because I hope that it makes them feel like they have a new group of friends. It's fun. It's like, I like to think of it similar to why people like to binge The Office over and over again. Like, you get immersed in that world and sort of fall in love with those characters, and I think that's sort of what we want to do with Human Telegraphs. It's like there are villains in our world of Human Telegraphs, but they're still sort of lovable because they're so ridiculous. And I think it's just we just wanted to create something fun that people could enjoy. So I think it's just really lighthearted and something that people can pull up on YouTube whenever and watch as many times as they want.
Definitely.
So enjoy it.
And Rachel, to finish off, what would you like to say to everybody out there before they sit down to watch Human Telegraphs?
Well, Fern and Kayla kind of summed it up, but it does remind me of, I just saw an interview with the director, probably going to botch his last name, but Taika Waititi, who I love all of his work with What We Do in the Shadows.
Yep.
And he was talking about the making of it with Jerome, what is his last name? He created Flight of the Conchords, and they also collaborated on What We Do in the Shadows, the movie. Anyways, Jerome, that really famous New Zealand filmmaker as well, and he was saying to Jerome, what are we doing? We're building out this feature film out of a short little 10-minute concept. And Jerome said to him, you know what, the world needs more ridiculous. There's so much heaviness in the world. who cares that, like, this is like an office style, documentary about vampires trying to live in the 21st century. The world needs more ridiculous. And then, Taika Waititi was like, you're absolutely right. We just need something light. We need an escape. And there needs to be more of that. And that really hit home when I listened to that interview. It was an interview on writing. I was like, yeah, that really feels like why we're releasing Human Telegraphs right now, too. We just need to laugh, and we need to be immersed in something that's more elevated than the challenging times that we tend to experience. Whether we just open up the news or we go on Twitter, there's just so much heaviness in the world, and it's nice to go back to that sense of playfulness and inner joy that we all have. We've had since we were kids. We all like to be delighted and have a sense of wonder and just be immersed in something beautiful and new, and that's our intention, at least, and hopefully we achieve that with a lot of audience members.